What's up, ladies, gentlemen, and lowlives? Welcome to this episode of Local Love Monday. Today, we've got Assemblymember David Alvarez of District 80 in the house. So let's get going and find out what he's all about.
You're unbelievable. I'm muted. Good. You're unbelievable.
Simply unbelievable.
You are. Ladies and gentlemen and constituents of the District 80, thank you for tuning in for another episode of Local Love presented by Emo Brown, the media group, brought to you by the wonderful people at Three Punk Ales for all your libation fun. Make sure to check us out on 3rd Avenue in Chula Vista or cruise out to India Street, Barry, in Little Italy. I'm all redded out. Look at me. Oh my God, like I'm slouching, dog. I love you.
Yeah, sit up.
Prominent people here today. You weren't lying, BJ. We have a very prominent person, somebody who I was a little bit nervous to meet today because I am not as refined as top tier people in our community. This young man, from the get-go, immigrants, family, hardworking background, worked through his way through school, ultimately came to the position of State Assemblyman District 80. David Alvarez is here, and I'd like to learn the journey, the blueprint, the path taken from Barrio Logan all the way to the top to Sacramento. Bienvenido. Mucho gusto, Mr. Alvarez. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day and schedule to sit down with us and tell us your story.
Yeah, muchas gracias. Thanks for having me. It's
Always,
great to be
man.
here.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Politics, where you're from, what got you into politics, your background.
Yeah, it's really interesting because now I have to talk about politics because I'm in politics.
Yes.
But it's not really something I ever thought or planned or wanted to talk about in my life. I am from Barrio Logan, as you mentioned. I am proud. I still live there in Logan Heights. I live about 5 blocks from where I grew up.
Very nice.
Yeah. It's where my parents came to when they were immigrants to this country. They came here in 1976. They came here with my older sister and my 4 older brothers. And they came here seeking that dream, the American dream that we were so proud about in this country. I was then born here and raised here in this community, and I love the work that I do, but it wasn't something that I sought after. My parents never even had a first grade education. I was the first one in my family to go to college, and I was just really blessed with amazing, hardworking parents that taught me the value of hard work and the opportunities that I was provided to with like our public education system and our university. So I'm here now and definitely happy to share how to get here because I think more people like me should be in positions like the one that I'm in.
Indeed. It's always awesome to see people, and it's such a cliche, but it's true, people that look like us, talk like us, are like us, to get to different levels within local government, to become an entrepreneur, to be college educated, have a college degree, further that education. It's always awesome and interesting to just kind of get the perspective from somebody from that standpoint. Yeah. You having 5 siblings, so coming from siblings 6, where do you rank age-wise in that grouping?
I'm the youngest of 6.
Okay.
I'm the youngest of 6. But just like you said, just yesterday I was at a graduation from a young man who is now a doctor of audiology. First in his family to go to college. My wife does amazing work with first generations. That's her line of work. And so we got to go to his graduation celebration. And my son, who's only in 5th grade, he's 10 years old, to see someone who's now a doctor who looks like him, who's darker skinned than even him. We were just talking about it this morning. Like, that makes an impact. You are who you know, and you can become, what you know. And so that exposure, even to those of us that are blessed to have opportunities and to be around people, is still significant. You can really impact the future of somebody's life.
We're very spoiled now in the communities we live in. I live here in Chula Vista. You live in Barrio Logan. I feel like it's a different era, a different time. My kids are very privileged in the sense that they get to view people that look like us on a daily basis doing amazing things, entrepreneurs, being doctors, being politicians. Yeah. Was there somebody that you saw growing up in this role of a community leader or a politician that kind of like ignited a spark within you to run for office eventually?
No, quite the opposite. I think, my parents, like I said, were immigrants from Mexico, and in Mexico, like politics is corruption, right? It's negative. There's this like negative connotation to it. So I actually, when I first decided to run, I'll tell you, I was a little bit involved in politics, but when I first decided to run for city council for San Diego, when I first got elected over 15 years ago, was when I first decided to run. It was a little bit uncomfortable. My mom had passed since, but my dad was still living with us, and he lived in my home until he passed a few years ago. And to just like cross that line of, hey, like I went to college and now I'm going to be a politician. Because of what, the history of the context of politics.
¿Por qué, mijo?
Yeah. Of course, never questioned and supported like every, parent, but it was a little bit of a barrier. So nobody I knew was ever in politics. I was never even involved in like politics and government and in college. Like none of that. I was really active in my community and in my church, and we were doing cleanups and graffiti paintouts. And certainly there were people along the way, and I can name them all. From my very first job at the age of 15, I had a woman. Her name is Marta Flores, who's a leader in the community. She still lives in the community, who was like a mentor-like as a professional. Like you can be a professional and run programs in the community. To then when I got my first job at the National City Family Resource Center. With Macedonio Arteaga, who you should bring onto the show if you haven't.
But a couple of times he sent us down the rabbit hole of some of his experiences.
Yeah.
Pinche Macedonio, bro.
Friend of the show.
God. I'd like to go on one of those retreats.
That's right.
I know one of the good homies, Chicle, and his son just went on one of those excursions with
the
them.
one in August.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
those are amazing experiences.
Very scared.
Highly recommend.
I'm very scared to do those
So
things.
Macedonio called me when I graduated from college and said, hey, I've got this program in National City. You should come and run it. So I was a supervisor out of college doing social work, and it was like an amazing opportunity. So it's been, and many others along the way who taught me the value of really like giving back to the community. And that's how I see politics. I know that's not how most people see politics. And I think it's fair to even criticize that some politicians don't see it that way. They see it perhaps as a way to like have power or be in a position.
Elevate their status.
But there's many of us that like do this because we care about what happens in our community and want to make it a better place.
I mean, I think that is the appropriate and the only way you should be looking at being a politician. If you live in that community, and here's the thing, we were talking a little bit before that, I've changed completely from 10 years ago to where I am now, 15 years ago to where I am now. Since 15 years to now, I'm a business owner, I'm a father, I'm much more involved with the community than I ever was. And when I do these things, I look for my local representation. Like, is this person doing that as well? And then you hear stories of local politicians who don't even live in the community that they represent. For me, it's just like politics it's a crazy game. And it shouldn't be a game. It should be something that you are involved with to try to further and make your community a better place.
Yeah.
My kids go to the district here. They go to the community that we live in. My businesses are in my district and where I live. So it's a weird situation for me. So I really keep my fingers on the pulse of what's going on down here. And to see certain people like don't do it the right way, I'm like, oh, well, that's a shame.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always told people who wanted to run for office who, think it's important enough to seek my advice and are willing to listen to it that, if you get elected to office, you make of it whatever you want. And I think it's like a lot of things are this way. Even a regular job that you get, no matter what the job is, you can sit there, clock in, and do the work and get paid, or you can go beyond, and where those people are. And it's the same in politics. You can get politicians who get elected. It could become a very comfortable
check the boxes,
thing.
What's required.
Get reelected. Do enough just to the panzazo, right? Just like pass, and then there's some of us who are like, man, we only got a few years to do as much as we possibly can. Let's
make it happen now. No, I feel you. And then I've heard a lot about you. Your name gets thrown around in this community in a very positive light.
Good. That's
very
good.
positive light.
Gotta put that in there.
Yeah, thrown a word. But it's true. I've heard a lot about you. I've heard a lot of your stories, and I've slowly started following. I mentioned via podcasts or just articles that I've come across. Your head is in the right place. You are from Barrio Logan. You come from that family, the prototypical immigrant family that came over here, has to take whatever job is available simply to provide a livable life, like a lifestyle for you and your 5 siblings. A lot of what you do, I'm 100% sure, comes from that initiating, like the beginning.
Yeah. Yes, it all comes from that. It all stems from, my dad was a bracero, first of all. So he would do the journey back and forth, back when people were hired in Mexico to come and do farm. He was a farm worker, but the laborers, they were hired to do the rail lines. he did farm work and then would go back and do it every few months. And so he knew there was a land of opportunity here. So that's why, in the time when he decided to bring the family across to seek that opportunity, which is what's like driven the history of this country and the greatness of this country, which is the immigrant story is not just one about the hustle or about like overcoming obstacles. It's about building what this country is. And like, we just forget that story, and it's so important. And I'm just lucky enough that I was so close to that. I actually sometimes worry about like, man, do my kids understand the sacrifice that my parents went through, and how do we keep that legacy alive?
How do you personally keep that legacy alive?
I do it by just Friday. I had this amazing event. So I know you started a scholarship or, foundation. When I was out of my 4 years out of government and out of politics, and I had started my own PR firm. I was doing really well, and it was the 4th year of that I lost my dad. My dad, after my mom passed away, I got married. We bought our home. My parents never owned a home, so my wife and I got married, bought a home, and my wife has been just amazing supporter of mine always, and we support each other. But I think she supports, she goes above and beyond. I'm really thankful and blessed to have her. But she said, hey, like, what's gonna happen with your dad? Because I was living with my dad. I was the youngest of 6, the only one living. We were renting a little 2-bedroom, and she said, what's gonna happen to him? What if he comes to live with us? So it came from her, and so asked him, and he joined us. So when we got married, started having kids, he's helped us raise our kids and all that. And so my kids got a chance to experience it
firsthand as well.
Yeah, intergenerational thing was amazing. I think it kept him really young and alive much longer than he died at the age of 88. But in honor of that, once he passed away, I was again out of politics already. I said, what am I doing now? What's reflecting on life and all that? I started a scholarship in honor of our family. And just last Friday, we had our celebration of some scholarship recipients. And the theme of my scholarship and what I asked them to write about, I don't care about what your grades are, where you're going to school. Tell me about your immigrant story and what that means. And so we heard some like amazing, and that's the legacy that we get to hear, at least, within our family every single year, reminding us of our roots, of what it means to sacrifice it all and to work as hard as you possibly can to be successful. And that's how I try to keep it alive, and the culture as well, obviously. Yeah.
And in Barrio Logan, it's everywhere.
Yeah,
in Chula Vista, it's in South San Diego. Right. It's everywhere. Our culture is, we're very fortunate that you don't have to go too far. Mm-hmm. It's there, like every Sunday, not every Sunday because we've cut back on it a lot, but 2 Sundays out of the month, we'll take a walk down to the panaderia, and my kids, they live here. They are from here. Yeah. Spanish for them is not as fluid as it was for me, because I was raised by my parents, obviously very involved when we were little, but they were working. Mm-hmm. Like, they were always working, and we were left with my abuelita in San Isidro and in Villanueva, and they would just raise us from the moment they dropped us off before they went to work, and I went to preschool, elementary school, to the time somebody came back and picked us up. So I was just inundated with novelas, my abuelita, and everything, and my tias and cousins, just everything. So that was my upbringing. Very easy. For me, ESL was, English came easy, because my parents were always like, English en escuela, mijo.
Yeah.
En la casa, puro español.
That's right.
Simplemente español en la casa. You have all day to speak English with your friends and develop that. But here at home, you're not going to lose touch with us.
We did the same with our kids to try and maintain the language. So our children both actually only spoke Spanish until they went to school.
Very nice.
And then, they went to a bilingual literacy program, and so they picked up the language. And now we struggle. My daughter's now in high school, and now we're trying to make sure she maintains that Spanish, right?
It's very difficult.
It's tough.
If you don't use it on a regular, consistent basis, I feel it's one of those things. Like, even my sister, we're a few years apart, like 4 or 5 years, but I feel like my sister didn't use it as much, and hers slowly disappeared. Yeah. And I have cousins that it's completely gone on. Then I'm like, I just don't want my kids to have that same thing happen. Yeah. So we enrolled them like that. Now my oldest is in middle school, and he's in a program where you have to have a second language, and it's Spanish. I'm like, all right, that's fine. It kind of hurts me that it's Spanish, but I'm happy you're in there, you're learning. And it's kind of like a bad on myself and my wife. My wife always gives me a hard time. She's like, oh my God, you speak Spanish like nonstop, and our kids don't speak. I was like, I know, I got to work better at getting that.
I want to go back to something you said, though, because it's easily forgotten. And you shared your story, and I shared a little bit about my story. We forget about how difficult it is for working people to like struggle and succeed and get their kids through family, childcare, a big issue, right? Those things haven't gone away. And I think that the thing I like to remind people, even those of us who maybe have sort of made it, if you will, right? Whether you're an entrepreneur or, you know, successfully in your profession, there's still people, there's still families that are struggling. Like, it's easy to forget once you move beyond that. But we've got people who, you know, they can't get childcare for their kids. That's not a way to progress and to have, you know, good quality of life. Obviously, housing now is a big issue.
Extremely.
So all of the things that matter to real people are embedded in the decisions that we make in politics. And that's why politics should matter to everybody.
As soon as you get older, you realize just how important and involved politics is a part of your life.
Yeah.
As a state assemblyman, tell me a little bit about the role, the responsibilities, what it entails. I know prior to that you served as 2 terms as city councilman in San Diego, but what is an assemblyman's duty?
What the hell is an assembly member?
Right?
Nobody knows, and it's okay because it's a very different term. I'm basically the Congress of the state of California. So I get elected to, my main job is actually to write laws and to vote on other people's ideas of laws.
Okay.
And so I've introduced legislation or laws that are typically based on ideas that come from people in the community, and I'm happy to share some of those examples. And then I sort of push it through the process. I go to committees of other people like me who get elected. I'm one of 80 assembly members in the state. We each represent 500,000 people. And so we all come from all over the state. We all have districts. And some people come from cities like San Diego and LA and San Francisco. The vast majority, though, come from other areas in rural California, right? Central Valley.
And it's all not like this.
And it's, yeah.
It's not all like this.
No. And so my job is to vet their ideas like they vet mine through the committees that I sit on, and then make it go forward. And if we can get it through the legislature, then it goes to the governor, and he either signs our laws or he vetoes. Yesterday, he just vetoed one of my bills. He signed 2 of my laws. He vetoed one of them. The one he vetoed really disappointing because it was to give undocumented students employment. So that was really kind of personal and gut-wrenching. And I met with the students this morning who were part of the organizers, all undocumented students, and obviously they feel like a big blow to them, like they've been abandoned. And, you know, government has abandoned these kids. It's kids who were brought to this country undocumented, but all they know is that some of them don't even speak Spanish, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever country they come from, because it's not just Latin America and Mexico, it's other parts of the world as well. So that's what I do. I try to pass laws. I try to get the governor to sign the laws, and they become, you know, the law of the land for California.
When a governor does not pass that, is it black and white, done? Mm-hmm. Or do you get an opportunity to come back, get back to work, prepare it again, and present it again?
Yeah, in fact, and I was asked by the reporters on this issue, on this bill, will you bring it back? And absolutely, because that bill was about giving it's like, this is what we expect of everybody. Go and get an education and then do something of yourself and get to work. Well, if you're an undocumented person, you might be able to go to college and get a degree, but then you can't work because you don't have legal documentation.
It's a huge door of opportunity being closed right there.
Absolutely.
The only door of opportunity being closed. Yeah. So,
we're bringing that one back.
How do you personally deal with something like this? That's such a blow.
Yeah, you get the call and they tell you the governor's vetoing this bill, and like, I mean, he's not going to change his mind at that point, right? He's made up his mind. Just like a lot of faith. What I told the students this morning was the big struggles in our country's history, in our nation's history, no matter what it is, never happened like one day after, a year after it. They took oftentimes, a long, long time, whether it was women's suffrage or civil rights or, anything you look at. Any progress made to people, it took a lot of years of battles. And so I told the students, don't give up because you're on the right side of history. In fact, people believe that the public opinion is with you. It's just sometimes government is late to the game, and that's what's happening here.
What about one of your victories?
One of the bills he did sign was to protect our Imperial Beach residents who live in the mobile home park that have been going through this ridiculous, that we call it the RV shuffle. They've been pushed out, stay out for 2 days, and then you can come back in, and they raise their rent. So some protections, rental protections for our RV residents in Imperial Beach. We're doing a lot of housing related bills. How do we make housing easier to build? more investments in education. Two things I care about: housing and education. Without an education, I would not be where I stand today. And so how do we increase more access to opportunities in education? So I actually chair the budget committee for all of education in the state.
Very nice.
And so protecting that funding was really important this year so that we don't get less money in the classroom, so that our classrooms can continue to thrive. More after school opportunities, lunches for free for every student, no matter what their income is, financial aid, keeping the fees at colleges and universities stable and not increasing. Those are the things that I work on and so those are some of the victories, but there's a bunch of other
Big
bills.
victories right there.
Yeah,
very
victories,
nice.
yeah.
I did notice that you were in a lowrider in one of the photos that we were
last year,
able to bring up. That has to be a huge look at you.
Yeah, this was a really proud moment. Again, an idea that came from our own community, National City, our lowrider community. In California, you could legally be pulled over for riding a lowrider, and because it's too close to the ground. Two reasons: it's too close to the ground, or you're driving too slow. You're cruising.
Oh man!
So cruising is not a crime was a bill that came from the people of National City, and our Latino. The Lowrider Coalition was amazing in that, and we went from an idea in National City, a city of like 50,000 people, to now it's law in the entire state of California for 40 million people.
We had an opportunity to sit down with OG Rabbit, come in down and sit down with us, and he gave us the whole insight. Los dio todo el chisme, bro. And it's a culture, obviously, that's deep rooted in what we are all about as Mexicans, Latinos, Hispanics here in South San Diego. I had zero clue exactly the ins and outs of how that worked, but it was awesome to hear his story of championing this, pushing it forward, getting it to the top, getting it the attention it deserved, and ultimately having a picture of you right there on there in a lowrider.
Yeah.
What were you sitting in?
I think that was Rabbit's car. It
Was
either
it?
Rabbit's or because he's got a
An
Impala,
Impala
60, 65 or 60, I don't remember which year. That looks like it was his. I've had the pleasure now of sitting in a few lowriders, which I probably will never be able to own and afford myself.
Those
because
things are ridiculously expensive, man. He was telling me
Yeah.
like upwards of 75,
Yeah.
100, 150. I was like, no, pues,
And
una
I live
casa.
in Logan and I don't have a garage. So, where do you keep it, right?
I know the feeling. I live here on the west side of Chula Vista. There's no garages
garages
either.
over here. Yeah,
We
that's
have to
right.
park our stuff here in the warehouse. So you don't own one?
I don't.
Is that a goal? Is that something that you
That
would
is
want
a
to
goal
do?
when I retire.
Doing so much for
Absolutely.
that community, doing so
Yeah.
much for that subset. It's like, I feel like
You
somebody
know,
should gift you one.
It's wow.
Let's make
put
a
it out
call,
there. Let's
PJ.
put it out there,
Can you
Let's
call
throw it out
somebody?
there.
I would say both that bill and the undocumented students bill is an example of how I like to legislate, or how I like to write laws. It's ideas that come from people who are passionate about something that I connect with, right? Like this is power. People say power. This is power to the people. Like without them, we wouldn't have had that law.
Very much so.
So I had a young girl my first year in office. She went to a school in East Chula Vista. I don't remember if it was Otay or Olympia. I don't remember which school it was, but she had a Zoom with me. She shared her personal story, which was really amazing. She was depressive, had depression. She had suicidal ideation, all these things. And she taught me about a drug that changed her life. She taught me about a test that changed her life.
Or drug.
And a drug did too, in a
drug
positive
test.
way. But it's called the study of pharmacogenomics. I did not know the PGX.
Pharmacogenomics.
It's the study of how drugs, pharmacology, is impacted by your genetic makeup. And so now you can get a test of whether a particular type of drug is a good fit for your genetic makeup.
Oh, wow.
So her mom found out about this, and she got her daughter the test and realized she was taking wrong medication. They corrected her medication, and the young woman is now
Thriving.
and totally, whatever you'd put in quotes as normal, but definitely living a normal life.
Imagine being prescribed a drug that's built to help make you better and assist you and improve when the whole time it's just a detriment to your health, your
right.
mental being, and
Yeah,
everything.
your doctors are telling you, right?
Yikes.
So because of that, we wrote a law. So now that anybody who would like to receive a test like that, who's like on Medi-Cal or on any of these programs, and some private insurances do this as well, you get covered for that, and it's only like a $300 test. It's not even an expensive test, but now you get it covered. So now and it's because it's your genetic makeup, you don't have to do it again, right? But forever you can, as more and more drugs get tested against different types of genetic makeup, you can see whether that
Oh, wow.
drug is beneficial or potentially impactful.
Ever
to you.
evolving then.
Yeah.
Your
And
internal
that was
workings.
because of a young person. So I'm telling you, like, people can make a difference in other people's lives.
On the regular, monthly, how many proposed laws come to your desk, comes to your office that you look through?
So the processes that we start in January, that's when we introduce officially the laws.
Okay.
And then like February, March, and April, they go through the committees and they either pass those committees or they don't. And then it goes to the full assembly so that 80 of us vote. And if it passes that, then it goes to the Senate.
Like in
And it
September?
does- so by September, we know. So
Okay.
the legislative year, the cycle is like from January through August. So what we're doing right now in September is one, the governor's either signing or vetoing our laws.
Yep.
But two, we are talking to people about ideas that they have. I was just at a community meeting in Stockton, which is just outside Memorial Logan area, on Commercial, actually about Commercial and 32nd Street, at Christ the King Church. And there was a woman, a young girl who had been human trafficked. And she shared her story. And it was, as a father of a girl, like just gut wrenching. I almost didn't know what to say in response to that. She shared the details of how that happened. And then her father got up and spoke afterwards. And he said, can we work with you on making sure that basically this doesn't happen again to someone? That if someone is thinking about doing this to a young woman or anybody, that they know that there's consequences, right? And so I said, absolutely. So these are the conversations. So now they're reached out to me and we're going to talk to each other about, is there a law that we could maybe pass that somehow, could be helpful? So right now I've got a list of probably 18 or 19 ideas. And then, so my job during these months is think those through. Can they actually become laws? And then maybe introduce them in January. So on average, it's about 20 to 25 laws that I introduce every year.
Very nice, man. That's a busy year.
It is.
It
yeah.
must fly by.
It is. It's an amazing experience. When you do something you enjoy,
Yes.
right?
All
what
of you.
happens. Yeah.
Your background in San Diego State was actually psychology.
Yep.
Listening to some of these experiences, if you've gone through, it's almost like a benefit that you had that as a background in college and in the position that you currently hold.
Yeah, you have the empathy to listen to people, right, about their concerns, because at the end of the day, that's what my job is supposed to be. How am I addressing your concerns? So that is a good skill to
Not
have.
bad, man.
You also deal with a lot of difficult people.
Should be a
Big
prerequisite for all you guys. Send them all, get them all.
Big personalities, right? Like every politician has a big ego, really. Like we all have to have some sort of an ego to do what we do. And so to be able to understand them where they're coming from and not to judge other people, because at the end of the day, today I might not agree with what you're doing and I might not vote for your idea, your law, but I'm going to need your vote at some other point. And so how do you maintain those relationships? And so in that way, the psychology background has also been very helpful. And then people who just have like some really crazy ideas, and it's like, how do you not offend them for,
Yeah.
I just disagree with
You
you.
have a little superpower over it. It's like, I know how to deal with this person.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
So initially, now, when is your term over?
So I get elected every time there's an election. So
Okay.
when we vote for president and when we vote for a governor, which is every 2 years, I'm also up for election. The same thing for Congress, right? People who go to D.C., we re-elect them every 2 years. Yeah.
What's next for you? What is your ultimate goal?
So I'm in this position. I'm only finishing my first full term. I can do this for a total of 12 years. So I see myself being here for quite some time, especially because I have some big ideas that I want to accomplish. I want to get our university in Chula Vista over there on the east side. That's a project that's going to take a long time. I have to stay really focused. And if I'm going from one thing to another, jumping from one place to another, I won't be able to make the progress that I need to make. So I'm really committed to doing this for the next, 10 years.
Being from Chula Vista, there was 2 projects growing up that were always there. Always like, oh, and this is coming. Oh, and that is coming. One is the Bayfront project,
Right.
which seems to finally be on its way to open next summer. And, some of the businesses here on the west side are looking forward to it. Some of the residents are not. It's like it's kind of like a mixed bowl of emotions on
You
what
get
we're
a feeling
expecting.
of what I get all the time. Some think you have a great idea. Some people think
That's
it's a horrible.
horrible. What are
idea.
you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely something that was always on the forefront. It's like, oh, just wait till the Bayfront gets developed. Just wait till we have resorts and it'll be tourists and there will be more business. And the other one was the university. I remember I went to Bonita High School. I graduated in 97. And I remember around that time, like I was a junior. Oh, there's going to be a university in Chula Vista. It might be a UC or it might be privatized or it might be state. Here I am 25 plus years later. And there's more of a rumbling now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it has anything to do with the Bayfront finally getting wheels and moving forward. And now it's like, hey, let's go. University time. Where are we with that?
So you're right that in the late 90s, there was an actual push for a UC Chula Vista. That was definitely happening. Somebody else that was in my shoes back then, actually, he was a state senator, but the same sort of position, was pushing for that. Senator Steve Peace, he was trying to push for a UC Chula Vista. So it is real.
It is real.
That it's been that long. We also though need to recognize the people who did. It's like everything you fight for. Like sometimes it takes a long time. We talked about this already. This is a project that has taken a long time to get us to where we are. Amassing 400 acres of land that is owned free and clear by the city, that's public now, is not easy to do. So I do want to at the moment like recognize former Mayor Mary Salas and Mayor Cheryl Cox, like the mayors that have come along the way who have worked to make sure we had this land. And you can't have a university if you don't have anywhere to put it. And so they've done that. They've done that work. Now we've funded through money I got, $25 million my first year in office 2 years ago. We're about to open next year the new library facility in East Chula Vista, where on one floor of those, we're hoping to bring the first 4-year degrees with like San Diego State and UCSD. And that'll be like our first incubator of university programs. The goal is ultimately to move to the main campus at 400 acres. And that requires significant investment. This is where I like to share the story of CSU San Marcos. Everybody knows we have a university up north. When they first started, they started out of a middle school, right? And that was a university out of middle school. Then they went to a complex almost like yours here where they had a Jerome's Furniture. And in fact, a lot of people still recognize it as Jerome's University because it was next to the Jerome's Furniture. And that's where it went. It did not have a campus. It was out of a commercial strip mall. Then it wasn't until, years later that they finally got their very first building where their operating plant. And now they're actually a real campus, right?
Full-fledged.
I think most of us know San Diego State University, over a 100-year institution, UCSD, over 50 years old. And we just think these things happen overnight, and they don't. So my goal is, by the time I leave office, is to make sure we have the very first building on the new campus.
That's how long it takes.
That's how long it takes, yeah.
How long was the process for San Marcos?
It was, I don't remember the exact number of decades, but it was decades.
From middle school to now.
It was like in the 1970s when it was first started.
Really?
It might have been late 60s, and it wasn't until way later. Yeah.
How exciting to be in your position, man. You in a sense, it's like you get a lot of the building blocks of what's coming our way.
Yeah.
You get to see things that are being planned, being discussed, and ultimately being implemented and put into action.
Yeah.
That's power.
Yeah, it feels like a great opportunity to leave. Again, you talk about legacy, right? Like, when I decided to get back into politics, after a lot of prayer and reflection, it was really, I was reflecting. My dad had passed away only a few months before that, and I was like, is this it for me? Like, is this all I wanted to accomplish, or is there more to accomplish for our community? And the calling was really like, this is what you are called to do. There's more work to be done. And so we just put our head down and get to work. And these things take a while, for sure. Nothing happens overnight anymore. But even building up a business, that doesn't happen overnight. It starts with an idea, and you hopefully get the investors to come in and help you do that. It's the same thing for a public project. Is you start with an idea, and then you get the investors, which in our case is the taxpayers, which is either through money from the state or money from the people who live in the region, who say, we should invest in that. We should put money behind that.
District 80.
Yeah.
Chula Vista.
National City.
Bonita.
Right.
National City.
Imperial Beach, San Isidro, Otay, and Logan and Sherman.
All of South San Diego pretty much right
Anything
there.
south of the 94.
Very nice.
Yeah.
How awesome is that? To be the boss of representing, being in charge of pushing things forward for that community.
When I left my city council job, and by the way, being on the city council was an amazing experience, and I love that job. I got to see like libraries built like in San Isidro that had the oldest library in all of San Diego to now the newest state-of-the-art, amazing facility down there, fire stations, roads like to San Isidro High School for the kids that were walking literally on the side of the road without even a sidewalk, to even like putting up a stop sign on Imperial and 22nd. Señora Ramona Rodriguez, I'll never forget that. She said, I've been wanting to do this for years and nobody ever did it. And I have a picture with her. We took it like in 2016, I believe. That was a big deal to her. Like all those little things, like just filled me with satisfaction that I was doing the right job. I left office and I went on an 8-day retreat of silence, just a spiritual reflection with the Jesuits. It's called the Ignatian exercises.
No speaking.
No speaking.
Nada.
Just to yourself in prayer by yourself. I still have pictures of the experience. It was definitely, I don't say this about a lot of things. It changed my life in a very positive way.
It did.
To be able to reflect more. I tell you that background because it wasn't until I sat down 8 years after I had been on the city council to actually appreciate like where I came from, my parents literally being poor, working minimum wage jobs, never owning anything, to have been able to be elected to office, to help run the city of San Diego. So now that I'm in this position, I definitely reflect about it a lot more often. Like, man, like I came from nothing. My parents never even had a first grade education, and I'm writing laws for the people of the state of California. What an amazing, amazing blessing that I have. And so I don't take it for granted.
What a beautiful 8 days of reflection that must have been then.
It was amazing. It was a lot of things came to me. One of the things that came to me, I was actually running for another position at that point already. I was like a candidate for something else. And it was so impactful to me that I said, I don't want to do this right now. This is not what I want to continue. So I just stopped being a candidate. It was for supervisor for San Diego County. I just want to be with my family and like appreciate like who they are and what God has given me. And I got to do that for 4 years, and I feel like I needed that.
I was going to say, ultimately, it was probably the best move for you.
I wouldn't have been in the place that I'm in without that. So, yeah.
Mayor, is that something that?
No, and I ran for mayor, right? Like I ran for mayor in 2013
with Faulkner.
The biggest hit they had on me was that I was too young. All the commercials, I remember them. Oh, the 33-year-old cannot run a city. And I ended up losing by a few points in that election, but that was like the worst they could say about me, and that's okay, right? Because I think now being mayor is a huge responsibility. Like I was doing it at that point because I wanted to make sure somebody stood up for the communities that I represented. I think we've made a lot of progress. Like people are now talking in the language that I was talking about in 2012 and 2013. People throw around this word that I think few people actually know the definition, but like, what does equity mean? And unless you have lived experiences of being treated unequitable, you probably don't know what it means or can't appreciate it as much. And actually the other hit that I was hit, it was very racialized back then, was that I wanted to give more to those that had less, right?
Imagine.
Yeah. And so that was a very effective hit, particularly to the northern city people, the voters up there. So I just tell you that because now I know the job is, it requires a lot. And I'm trying to much better now than I did before to be a dad and to be a husband and to be a family member. And to be a mayor, you have to do it like literally all the time, nonstop. There's just no way you can maybe sleep and maybe get rest, but that's about it. And so if I were to do that job, the one thing that my mom and my dad also taught me is you better do the job right. And so probably not until if my kids are,
a little
somewhere
older.
Yeah, and my youngest is only in 5th grade, so I've got a long way to go to do that. But I also,
but it's there.
But it's certainly. I never say no anymore because I think I made that a wrong assumption that I was done with politics before, and I was like, well, no, because it's my calling. I also though will tell you, and I know you can relate to this. I've thought about this being my last job and retiring and just enjoying life with my wife. She's an amazing, amazing educator who's changed lives of people herself. She's given a lot to that as well. Like we've given a lot back to do good in our world and certainly in our community. At some point, I think we need to rest and enjoy life with ourselves and what we've been able to put together.
It's only fair.
So what we've done is we've been very intentional about saving. I built a little ADU in the back of my house, so now I've got some income stream.
I became revenue in the
became
backyard.
a little bit more entrepreneurial when I was out of politics. Like started to think, okay, what's my financial future? So we're on a really good path. And honestly, I could, after doing this job for a few years, and I could retire. By the way, I'm okay with that. That's the other thing that some politicians like. They want to hold on. They just want to hold on.
That's that ego, man.
And I don't need this to feel, any better about who I am or what I've done. I've done a lot, and I feel very happy about that. But to be able to just walk away and know that you can walk away is a great feeling. Like, I don't
It's a
have to
healthy
do that.
outlook, man.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
It's a healthy perspective
Yeah.
because a lot of, like you were mentioning, there's a lot of politicians that hold on to it simply for that position of power, simply for what that position does for their ego. It's not necessarily because they feel they can provide and still bring forth something for their community. Sometimes it's just, ay, no quiero todo este
yeah.
poder que tengo. Yo soy el mayor. Nah,
Well,
that's unhealthy.
And there's a lot of flattery when you get elected to office. I mean, like, people treat you like you're something else, right? Especially when you go work in the state capitol or in Washington, D.C., you're like this very important person, and people start to believe it. And it's like, no, like, people just like you because of
You can do
your
something.
position.
Yeah.
But like, once you're gone, nobody cares who you are.
That's
And
true.
as long as you remember that, I think you can stay grounded.
I saw a clip of you went viral
Uh-oh.
dancing on stage with Los Tucanes yesterday. Is this true or false? There was no clip. Relax.
Oh, shoot. I was like, where's the clip?
Oh my God.
I was there. I was
Very
there.
nice.
Yeah.
How was
there.
that?
I gave them a recognition, for Herencia Hispana, Hispanic Heritage. They were really nice, cool guys. They live in Chula Vista, by the way.
Yes, sir. I'll tell you a little
so-
something about them after.
Okay. But they were so generous. And yeah, they said, oh, just come on. I did not know we were going to go up on stage, but we got to
Nice.
hear the
You danced to La Chona.
La Chona, El Tucanazo.
How many people were out there? We were at the game, so I took my kiddos
Oh,
to
you
the
were?
game.
Yeah.
And we walked
Did you
by.
stay to the end?
Yeah, always. We always
Okay,
stay to
good,
the end. And
good.
it's weird since you bring that up. We were one of the first games that my kids truly understood the meaning of staying to the end. It was
Right.
against the Cubs this season when we were losing 8-0 in the 5th inning. And I told them, hey,
You never know.
7th inning, if we don't score at least 4 runs, we're going to go. Yeah, Dad, this game is boring. We're losing. Tan chiquitos have a 12, a 10, and a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
And we went and we stayed, and they ended up winning 9-8 on a Tatis home run in like the bottom of the 8th. Like, good thing we stayed, Dad. So now we stay till the end of the game every time. We walked around yesterday after the end of the game. It was slammed.
It was packed.
Yeah, it was packed.
And all those people apparently paid extra
in
to
addition
go to that.
yeah.
It's like, damn.
Oh, look at you, one of the perks.
Yeah.
Apparently, these people paid extra to stay here.
Apparently, yeah. Well, I gave them a recognition, and then they're like, "Oh, do you want to come?" So we went. That was not the plan. And then we were up there. I was like, "This is."
He's like,
really
I didn't think
cool."
this was going to be an invite. Takes off
Yeah.
his shirt, and he has his Tucanes are my favorite band
Tres
shirt on.
my tres animales in the back. Yeah. No, it was a really, really fun experience. They're a really cool guy. They're doing like get out the vote efforts in Central Valley, California. They give back a lot. Like they were
do.
telling me what they do, and I was like, you guys should get a better social media person because you need to be telling these stories of what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, double-edged sword. And most,
True. That's true.
I mean, look what's happening right now with Taylor Swift comes out and half of the population, yes, half the other half is like,
Yeah, but they're not getting they're not lining up with like a political candidate or anything. They're just getting out the vote.
Yeah, make sure you get out there and do your
Right,
due
right,
diligence.
yeah.
How awesome, man. Hey, awesome to sit down and talk to you today.
Thank you.
I look forward to getting an opportunity to sit down and just getting to know you better or picking your brain, because here in Chula Vista, I've seen you a few times. And I'm like, oh, that's David Alvarez. I'm going to wait till he comes on the podcast and we'll meet then. And then if I see, because I saw you on the block maybe last week.
Oh, yeah.
Not even last week. Yeah, last week.
Yeah,
on
probably Saturday.
Thursday. Okay.
Friday, yeah.
They're on the block.
I
So
was
I'm
at
like,
Don
okay,
Pedro's across from you.
it's like this young man is on the block always.
I get my hair cut by Donovan there also.
Where do you get your haircut?
Donovan, he's on F and between Church and 3rd.
Oh, no sé, yo voy con el
It's like
outer
a
stop.
black-
This
Well-
month's member of the month.
That's where my kid I go with Matt. I know Los there runs
Okay.
the shop at
Yeah.
Otter. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm very happy to have met you and spent some time with you today. Look forward to having you back.
Yeah.
Unless there's anything else you'd like to mention today.
No, I just want to say, like, honestly, anybody can do the work that I do. Like, I truly, truly believe that. Yeah, there's like, you get all this talk about things getting political and all that, but like, I literally was an underdog every time I run for office. I knocked on doors, I talked to people. If you're involved in the community, I was involved in the church and your kids' PTA. Like, I think the spirit of public service is in a lot more people than I think we know. Anybody who's giving back in any way, that's public service. And I elevate that work, and I like to recognize it, and I like to just, make us all aware that we can all make a real difference in our community. And you don't have to be elected to office. I've always said that. And you can make a difference literally by volunteering in your kid's school, giving out support, financial support to the kids who might need help. There's so many ways to give back. It's doing a cleanup in your neighborhood, painting out graffiti like I used to in my early days. There's just a lot of things we can all do to make this community a better place, and I thank everybody who does that.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your story with us. Very well put. Look forward to seeing you again and sitting down with you, Mr. Alvarez.
Thank you.
There it is, BJ.